Coming to you from the mountains and the plain, the only conservative voices brave enough to push back. This is the Conservative Daily Podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. My name is Max McGuire, going solo again today. Joe Otto is not here. He's fine. He's just not in the office today. But we're going to go solo. And today we're going to pick up actually on something I was talking about the last time that I went solo, which is this idea that the GOP only seems to do the bare minimum of what it takes to get conservatives off their back, but they never actually follow through with the promises that they make. So we're going to focus on that. So go ahead and make sure that you like, comment, and share on Facebook. Give us a comment. I see you, Nav, on YouTube. Welcome to the party. Make sure that you comment on YouTube. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. So I'm going to give you a little preface, and then we're going to talk about Trump briefly. But the GOP for weeks has been saying that they're going to get to the bottom of what happened with Obamagate, with Spygate, whatever you want to call it. They promised that they were going to get to the bottom of it. They swore that they were going to do everything necessary to drag these deep staters in to answer for what they did. Last week, we had James Comey testify. We're going to play some of his clips. It's amazing. We've had so much going on that we didn't actually get to do an episode on James Comey's testimony, but we'll get to that in a little bit. They promised that they had James Comey come in, and then they promised, oh, don't worry, Andrew McCabe will testify the following week. And he's not. He was supposed to testify tomorrow, and he's not. And the reason that Andrew McCabe isn't going to testify is he's too afraid because of the coronavirus. He was supposed to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee, but as we've covered, two Republicans on the Judiciary Committee, Tom Tillis and Mike Lee, tested positive for the coronavirus. So he's refusing to come in. He says it's too dangerous to come in. I don't want to do it. But he's also refusing to testify remotely. So I don't want to hear that you don't want to testify because it's too dangerous because of COVID, and also say you refuse to testify remotely. But as we'll get into, the only reason we're in this situation where now tomorrow's hearing is canceled at Andrew McCabe's insistence is because Lindsey Graham never actually bothered to issue the subpoena. He didn't do it. Instead, he went about setting this all up on a voluntary basis. Instead of issuing a subpoena and compelling this deep state criminal to testify, instead of doing that, he entered into a negotiation with Andrew McCabe and got him to voluntarily come in. So if you voluntarily agree to testify, you can voluntarily say, nope, don't want to. If Lindsey Graham had issued the subpoena as he had promised to do, there would still be a hearing tomorrow. Andrew McCabe would be in the hot seat, and we'd finally start getting answers about all of the crimes committed in Obama's FBI and DOJ in their attempted coup against the President of the United States. We're going to get into all that, so make sure that you like, comment, and share on Facebook. Make sure that you like the video on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe and give us hit that bell for notifications. But before that, I want to talk about Trump because we've got some good news today that Trump, actually they're saying that as early as today, Trump could actually be discharged. I don't know if it's technically a discharge. I don't know if he's ever been technically admitted because he's not wearing a hospital gown. He's in his business attire just hanging out. He's just hanging out in his presidential suite. But they said that he might actually he might be discharged as early as today, which is excellent news. If you're American and a conservative, excellent news. The left is freaking out over it. So I think, Mr. Producer, we got some footage. We actually went to the future and brought back some footage of Donald Trump leaving the hospital. Let's go ahead and play that footage. It's Donald Trump as Willy Wonka walking out of the chocolate factory. No! And that's the leftists freaking out over it.
To be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere.
That's been making the rounds on social media this morning, so I wanted to play it. Everyone listen to the audio version. It is the scene from Willy Wonka where Willy Wonka walks out of the chocolate factory for the first time on camera, and he looks like he's going to fall. He does his little somersault, and ta-da! But they superimpose Donald Trump's face on top of it. And then at the end, you have the leftists screaming in horror at Trump's first inauguration. So I want to play that. That's what I expect it to look like when Donald Trump walks out of the hospital today. Anyway, we got to get into this. I wanted to start off with a little bit of a joke. We didn't actually go into the future. We didn't actually do any of that. Let's go ahead and put up this letter, Mr. Producer. Let's put up image 2. Image 1. Let's start with image 1. My mistake. Image 1. This is from Catherine Herridge, who's a reporter. She used to work for Fox. Now she works for CBS. She got her hands on the letter that Andrew McCabe's lawyer sent to Lindsey Graham. And I wanted to do it because I like her notes. I like the way she writes her notes. But I'm going to read the full letter out for anyone who's listening to the audio version. This is what Andrew McCabe's lawyers sent to Lindsey Graham in response to his October 6th voluntary scheduled testimony. Dear Chairman Graham, this is to advise you that my client, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew G. McCabe, will not appear at the hearing, currently scheduled for Tuesday, October 6th, and entitled Oversight of the Crossfire Hurricane Investigation Day 4. The reason is the manifest danger of doing so in the face of an outbreak of the COVID-19 virus among members of the committee and its staff, the full scope of which cannot be known at this time and will not be known by Tuesday. Mr. McCabe is eager to testify voluntarily and in person at a future date when it is safe to do so. As you know, Mr. McCabe has been willing to testify voluntarily and in person from the moment we were originally contacted by your staff early last month. From the outset, we established several conditions, one of which is that his testimony be provided in person rather than using Zoom or some other video conferencing platform. The reason for that condition was and is because a witness answering questions remotely via video conference is at a distinct disadvantage in answering those questions. We witnessed this disadvantage during the testimony of former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates on October 5th, 2020, when you and other members of the committee frequently interrupted and spoke over Ms. Yates so that many of her answers could not be understood. We witnessed the same dynamic during last week's committee hearing when former FBI Director James B. Comey was interrupted by you and other members while he was giving answers, to the point that Senator Whitehouse had to request that you stop doing so. Mr. McCabe established various other conditions for his voluntary testimony a month ago, even though one of the most important among those conditions, obtaining access to, and let's go to image 2, obtaining access to various materials that would refresh his recollection, including his unclassified FBI personal calendars and his personal notes, was not met by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Mr. McCabe was still prepared to testify voluntarily and in person on October 6th, as recently as the latter part of this past week. However, since that time, it has been reported that at least 2 members of your committee, Senators Mike Lee and Tom Tillis, have tested positive for COVID-19, and it may well be that other members of the committee and staff who plan to attend the hearing will test positive between now and then, or may have been exposed to the virus and may be a carrier. Under these circumstances, an in-person hearing carries grave safety risks to Mr. McCabe, me, and senators and staff who would attend. Mr. McCabe is willing, able, and eager to testify in person about Crossfire Hurricane at any time in the future when it is safe to do so, but he is not willing to put his family's health at risk to do so. For these reasons, we are unwilling to appear in person for the October 6th hearing, and for reasons of fairness, we are unwilling to testify remotely. A fair and appropriate hearing of this kind, which is complex and contentious, simply cannot be conducted other than in person. Very truly yours, Michael R. Bromwich, who is the attorney for a Mr. Andrew McCabe. I wanted to read that whole thing just for everyone to hear, and anyone on the audio version of the podcast, which if you have not subscribed to the audio version yet, please do. We have links in the description for you to do so. And if you have an iPhone or a MacBook, please do choose the Apple Podcast version, and please do leave us a good review, a good 5-star review, and write a couple sentences about what you like about the show. It really does help us out. Now, the things that I loved about this is he's setting this up saying it's too dangerous to vote in person, to appear in person, but it's unfair to do so remotely. And because of that, he will not appear. I also loved that they said, we're demanding you give him all of his documents so he can refresh the memory. No, that he wants to get his story straight. Right? Andrew McCabe realizes that he's being thrown on the bus left and right by everyone who was around him. He wants to make sure he gets his story straight before he goes to testify because he doesn't want to perjure himself or open himself up for prosecution. So it's very interesting. The 3 reasons that he won't testify: too dangerous to do it in person, unfair to do it remotely, and you haven't let him read all of your evidence first, so he knows exactly what you're going to ask him. Very, very interesting. Let me know what you think about that. And I'm going to go ahead and put a poll up on the Facebook stream. Let's go ahead and publish this. Does Lindsey Graham deserve to win re-election? Now, I'm not saying do you want him to. Obviously, the way the numbers work, he needs to win re-election. We can't just have South Carolina have a Democrat senator. It would throw everything into jeopardy if Trump wins, when Trump wins. But I want to ask you, does Lindsey Graham deserve to win re-election? Because I believe that the answer is unequivocally no. Like, I don't believe that Lindsey Graham deserves it. And we'll talk a little bit about it. Now, I know that he says what he needs to say. And again, I'm not asking you whether you want him to win. I'm just saying, does his body of work, does he deserve to represent South Carolina as the Republican? Has he done everything he said he would do? And listen, I understand there's some people going to say yes, some people are going to say no. I get that. I'm just tired because Lindsey Graham was all over social media, all over Fox News, announcing that Andrew McCabe was going to testify. Let's go ahead and put up my screen, Mr. Producer. This was September 27th. This was when he was making all of the rounds. You're playing the video behind me, Mr. Producer. Graham sends Andrew McCabe. We're still playing the. Sorry, a little technical difficulties. We just played a little bit of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory meme. So this is from September 27th. Graham says Andrew McCabe testifying October 6th warned something more damning coming amid FISA fallout. And that was when Lindsey Graham was doing all of the rounds on Fox News, saying, like, we're going to get him. We're going to get him. Listen, if that's true, if you're about to nail this guy, you can't have it be voluntary. Who in their right mind would say, yeah, you can voluntarily appear, and then after they agree to do so, you go on TV and say, oh, more's coming. It's going to be damning. We're going to get him. No, because then you open it up for them to withdraw. Right? No one actually believes that this guy won't appear because of COVID. If COVID-19 was the real reason he didn't want to testify, he'd be willing to do it remotely, right? He has a reason. No matter how you want him to testify, he has a reason for why he can't do any of the ways. Right? He won't do any of it because he didn't issue the subpoena. Lindsey Graham did not issue the subpoena. Why? I have no clue. Cowardice comes to mind. It's very easy. He has full subpoena powers. He fought for this. Go ahead and take off my screen. Lindsey Graham fought for subpoena powers. He fought for it. He fought to give himself subpoena powers where he doesn't even need to have a committee vote. If he wants to subpoena someone as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the committee has given him the power to issue whatever subpoenas he wants. But he didn't subpoena Andrew McCabe. He didn't subpoena him. He allowed it to be voluntary. And now here we are, a day before the actual hearing, and Andrew McCabe backs out. Oh, COVID. Oh, well, sir, you can do it remotely. Oh, no, unfair. Well, is there any other way you can testify? Oh, no, you didn't give me all the evidence so I get my story straight. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Again, I have this poll up on Facebook. Does Lindsey Graham deserve to win re-election? I'm not saying if you believe he should. I'm not even saying do you want him to. Do you think that Lindsey Graham has fulfilled his promises enough to deserve re-election? I'm not even saying that do you want the seat to go blue, right? Because there's other conservatives in South Carolina who could hold that seat. It doesn't have to be Lindsey Graham. Does he deserve to be reelected? Let me know in the poll. On YouTube, Nav is saying Lindsey Graham does not deserve it. Robert on Facebook says Graham is compromised. Trish says no. Yeah, and I understand that he's done some things, but listen, it's been 4 years. It's been 4 years. Where are we at? We know we have these people dead to rights. We have them dead to rights. And then you see that the Durham report, I don't even want to call it the report. It's not supposed to be a Durham report. John Durham is a prosecutor. He's supposed to be prosecuting people. U.S. attorneys don't just issue public reports. That's what inspectors general do. So whenever time I hear it's the Durham report, it gets stuck. That's everyone's using it, but it's not what's supposed to happen. He's supposed to be prosecuting these people. And now we're hearing, oh, no, he's not going to do anything until after the election. So they're going to succeed. If Donald Trump loses, no one's getting prosecuted. Does anyone really think that the whole deep state is going to get prosecuted in between election day and inauguration if Donald Trump loses? Do you really think that Joe Biden would let that keep going? Considering the fact that he's neck deep in it himself, that it was Joe Biden who recommended the Logan Act be pursued as a means of keeping the investigation into Michael Flynn open. Does anyone really think that a President Joe Biden would let himself be investigated? Of course not. Right? They're not. We have to be fighting with everything we've got. In the time, Lindsey Graham hasn't even issued the subpoena, and Democrats have taken their fights all the way to the Supreme Court. Mentioned this before on the podcast. We have seen Democrat subpoena fights go all the way to the Supreme Court before Lindsey Graham can get the courage to just issue one to Andy McCabe. Right? Why is it that Democrats are willing to fight like hell, but the Republicans just won't do it? Why is it? It's not because they're real conservatives. It's not because they really support Trump. Right? What am I missing here? And then I get emails from the GOP saying we really need your support. Well, I get it. I get it's a numbers game. I get that we need to have Republican senators. I get that we need to make sure we hold the Senate. I know we need to retake the Congress. But listen, does anyone really think that the Republican Party as a whole, not talking about Trump, and not even talking about Ronna McDaniel, I like her, but the establishment, the Republican establishment, these people who just 4 years ago were content with the Hillary Clinton presidency. When you look at Paul Ryan, he was actually hoping for it. These people had already made their peace with Hillary Clinton winning. And they never have actually gotten on board with Trump. They never actually have gotten on board. Every time Trump says something even a little bit inflammatory, the media runs to them. You see Mitt Romney say, oh, I'm very disappointed in the president. Really? Mitt Romney, you met with the president for a job in his administration. Right? You see John McCain's wife. I endorse Joe Biden. We have to get rid of this president. Really? Cindy McCain went to President Trump and was asking for a job in his administration. All these establishment Republicans, oh yeah, I'm disappointed in the president. Really? Really? I don't see how anyone could be happy with the way the GOP is run. The GOP built itself up to be an opposition party, to be able to go on Fox News, make everyone angry, say, when we retake Congress, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And then when they actually retook Congress, they were so shocked they didn't even have the plans written. I mean, the fact that we still don't have a actual bill to replace Obamacare is disgraceful. And it's not Trump's fault. It's not Trump's fault. GOP congressmen and senators promised for years that they had a plan. How is it not ready to go on day one? Because they didn't actually think they were going to win. They never actually put the idea to paper. They might not even have an idea. They just were so dead set on going against Obama. And listen, I agree with them. But when it actually came time to implementing those policies, they failed. Like Lindsey Graham. What the hell? Andrew McCabe should be testifying tomorrow. He should have been subpoenaed. He should be testifying tomorrow. And if he refused to show up, Lindsey Graham, you should have sent the sergeant at arms to go collect him and bring him in. And if he still refused to testify, there is technically a very tiny jail cell underneath Capitol Hill that, right, if you hold him in contempt and that contempt vote goes through, he could be put in that jail cell until he agrees to testify, until Congress rolls over in early January. Right? These are all powers that Lindsey Graham and Congress have to compel people to testify. But we're not even talking about that because he didn't even bother to issue the damn subpoena. And listen, Andrew McCabe, I blame him for a lot of things. I don't blame Andrew McCabe for backing out, right? Like, it's pretty obvious that he was going into a really bad situation where just days earlier, James Comey threw him under the bus and essentially called him a liar. Who would want to walk into that? So we have that. Let's go ahead and play this. This is a clip of Ted Cruz hounding James Comey about whether James Comey is lying or Andrew McCabe is lying because their testimony doesn't match up. Let's go ahead and play this. Cut 1.
All right, let's shift to another topic. On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time has expired. This investigation of the president was corrupt. The FBI and the Department of Justice were politicized and weaponized. And in my opinion, there are only two possibilities. That you were deliberately corrupt or woefully incompetent. And I don't believe you were incompetent. This has done severe damage to the professionals and the honorable men and women at the FBI because law enforcement should not be used as a political weapon. And that is the legacy you've left.
Spot on. Spot on. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. This is where you start sending people to prison. James Comey testified under oath to Congress that he never, ever instructed anyone to leak. Andrew McCabe testified before Congress that James Comey instructed him to leak. You cannot get any more diametrically opposed than that. This is where you give them one last chance. Do you want to change your testimony, or is this truly how you feel? And if they changed, if Andrew McCabe or James Comey was to change testimony, then there was perjury before, and that can be referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for immediate prosecution. It bypasses the Attorney General entirely, and can be sent right to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution. Andrew McCabe will not answer that question tomorrow because Lindsey Graham never bothered to send the subpoena. He had the full power to do so, but he never bothered to send it. Why? No clue. Maybe he was spending too much time on Fox News begging you to donate to his campaign. That could have been it. You've seen that every night. He's on Sean Hannity saying, I really need you to donate to my campaign. Lindsey, I'd love to donate to your campaign. Send the subpoena. You have an entire staff that can write up the subpoenas. All you have to do is sign on the dotted line. You do that, I'm happy to donate to your campaign, Lindsey. But until then, what? No, I'm not going to donate to your campaign. And it's not saying I don't want you to win. Because right now, yeah, the fact that the primary is over, yeah, no, a Republican needs to win that seat. But in no way, shape, or form does Lindsey Graham deserve to win re-election. Just don't believe it. Here's a supercut put together by a news website, Grabian, of all the times that James Comey suddenly said he couldn't recall. Let's go ahead and play cut 2.
Did Mr. Page deny knowing people that you accused him of having contact with?
I don't remember. That's about all I recall. I don't remember. I don't remember learning anything additional about Steele's sources. Not that I recall, no. I don't remember Bruce Orr ever giving me. I don't recall that.
So do you recall?
I do not.
Do you recall?
I do not. I don't remember any discussion. I don't remember using that word, but I don't remember using that word. I don't remember ever being informed. I don't recall being informed of that.
Did you ask any questions or do any due diligence on this at all?
I don't remember anything about the facts that have been revealed recently about the subsource. I don't remember the exact words, but something similar.
That doesn't ring
bells with me.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty stunning thing. It didn't ring a bell.
Which I'm sure you remember.
I don't remember the exact words. I don't remember whether I knew the Democratic Party. I don't know for sure. I don't know. I don't think I knew before. I remember reading the footnote. I don't know whether I asked. I don't know what that refers to. As I said earlier, that does not ring any bells with me when I read that. I don't remember it. I don't remember receiving anything that's described in that letter.
You know, Mr. Comey, I call that selective memory.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, listen, if you don't say I don't recall that many times, if you're not feeling the heat, if you're not hearing footsteps behind you, if you truly believe that you did everything right, you don't say I don't recall that many times. Yeah, I mean, and this is the problem. The GOP should have been pushing this hard. People like Ted Cruz should have been, I mean, he was, but the rest of the GOP should have been pushing this hard January 2017, because then James Comey can't say I don't recall because he's still in office, right? Or right after James Comey was fired. You can't say I don't recall, but now 4 years later, it's a legitimate argument to say I don't recall. That was so long ago, I don't recall. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. The GOP was more concerned with protecting Robert Mueller than getting to the truth about what was going on against the Trump campaign. That's true. Lindsey Graham authored the bill to protect Robert Mueller from being fired. It never got signed into law, but that was a Lindsey Graham bill. And I just want to make sure that I support that I fact check myself. Mr. Producer, let's go ahead and put up my screen. This was back in June 11th, the GOP votes to give Graham broad subpoena power in Obama-era probe. The Judiciary Committee voted Thursday to authorize subpoenas for more than 50 individuals. A party line 12 to 10 vote, Republicans gave Lindsey Graham broad authority to subpoena individuals tied to the investigation. Andrew McCabe was on that list. Lindsey Graham has the full authority to subpoena this guy. And remember, this was the second time they tried to hold the vote. The first time they tried to hold the vote, Democrats didn't bother showing up to the committee. They refused to show up. The only Democrat that showed up was Dianne Feinstein. And everyone else refused, because if there's not enough Democrats there, you can deny the quorum, which prevents Lindsey Graham from actually holding the meeting to give him subpoena power. So they actually tried to not show up and cancel that way. Eventually, they forced him in. Lindsey Graham has full authority, but he won't use it. Let me know in the comment section why you think that is. It's not for any virtuous reason. It's not for any conservative reason. It's not because he's such a rock solid conservative. It's not because he supports Trump. Why do you think Lindsey Graham won't issue the subpoenas? Let me know in the comment section why you think. Let's go ahead and play this. This is a clip of Congressman Collins responding to all of this. Let's go ahead and play cut 3.
I don't know what amnesia pill he took, but I think, you know what I think it was? I think it's called a Durham amnesia pill, because when you all of a sudden start seeing subpoenas, you already start seeing an investigation that's actually going into what you did and didn't do. It's amazing how much you forget, instead of going like we've seen Jim Comey do over the years when he was bragging to a reporter about how they got in early in the administration to take advantage of General Flynn during the chaos of the transition, and when he would be very braggadocious about what they did and how they did it. It's amazing what happens when you're under oath and that subpoena threat's out there and he's having to answer for what he did now. It's also very unbelievable that he didn't know the things that are going on. It's really sad day yesterday for him, but it's also a truth day for America. Carter Page and all Americans deserve much better than they got from Jim Comey.
Spot on. And I hope that Doug, I believe, isn't Collins running for Senate? I think he is. I believe that he's running for the Senate, right? Yeah. Yeah, he's trying to unseat Kelly Loeffler. Special election taking place on November 3rd. Yeah, I hope Doug Collins wins that seat. Again, I don't have much against Kelly Loeffler, but we've seen what happens when entrenched establishment GOPers are able to hold on to power. I'm sure that Kelly Loeffler is a nice person, right? I'm sure she's nice. I mean, I'm sure Lindsey Graham, he seems like a bit of a coward, but I'm sure that if you were to go and have dinner with him or have a beer, I'm sure you'd walk away saying that guy's nice. We can't have nice guys, right? That's why Donald Trump won. A nice guy would not have beaten Hillary Clinton. And a nice guy will not beat Joe Biden. We're done with nice, right? I don't want nice. I don't want, he did this. No, I need someone who's going to do what they say and say what they mean. I don't need Lindsey Graham and Kelly Loeffler. I'm sorry. You're too wishy-washy. I want Doug Collins in that seat. Because at least we know that when he says something, he will do it. So it's amazing. Andrew McCabe canceling his voluntary hearing out of fear for COVID, simultaneously refusing to do it remotely. And then this happens. Let's go ahead and put up my screen. Judiciary Committee postpones hearing with McCabe on Russia probe. Because Andrew McCabe refused to show up, Lindsey Graham says, I have no choice. Senate Judiciary Chair Lindsey Graham formally announced Monday that the hearing, scheduled for Tuesday, had been postponed. Of course, you can't have a committee hearing with your star witness, with the subject, if the subject just says, piss off, I'm not coming. Right? At least have the subpoena ready to go. If you're going to do voluntary, if you're going to go the voluntary route, at least have the subpoena written up. So the minute that those negotiations fall apart, you just issue it and say, listen, you're subpoenaed to appear on this date. If you refuse to do so, the sergeant at arms will compel you to testify. At least have the subpoena written up. But Graham doesn't even have that. I don't know. Am I off base? I would want nothing more than to support Lindsey Graham. I do. I oppose Lindsey Graham on a number of issues, right? Like, he's still Lindsey Graham-nesty as far as I'm concerned. Graham was one of the Republicans who promised that if the Supreme Court did not overturn Barack Obama's amnesty, that he would fight to overturn it through legislation. Where's that? Not only is it not happening, but Lindsey Graham is out there saying, I think we all understand that Barack Obama's amnesty program needs to become law. These illegal alien children must be protected. They're 40 years old at this point. No, that's what I'm talking about. I mentioned on the podcast before that promise from the GOP that if the Supreme Court did not overturn DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, Barack Obama's executive order, if the Supreme Court did not overturn it, the GOP promised we would fight tooth and nail to overturn it through legislation. That promise is so old, it was made when John Boehner was Speaker of the House. That's how old that promise is. Are they anywhere close to actually doing it? The Supreme Court ruled this year that nope. Unfortunately, the argument that Trump used to get rid of DACA wasn't good enough. They said he has the right to do it, but they said, no, the reason you gave is not good enough. Go back to square one and try again. Do you see the Republicans doing anything about it? I don't. No, you ask Republicans about it, they say, oh, well, we need to reach a compromise to give these kids a pathway to citizenship. What? That's not the promise that you made under John Boehner. I'm out. Like, listen, we need Republicans. We need Trump to win. We need a Republican Senate, Republican House. I get that. But as far as everything else, I want the GOP to burn to the ground. Not literally. No, not literally. But you have to, there has to be a cleansing. If all that we've accomplished by Trump presidency is that we held off GOP total cowardice for 4 or 8 years, that will be devastating. That would be a failure, right? We have had an opportunity to actually make the GOP about working Americans, right? About blue collar Americans, fight for good trade deals. And the minute you still have these idiots saying, "Oh, we shouldn't get rid of NAFTA." We shouldn't get we should get rid of NAFTA. NAFTA was great. NAFTA shifted all of the manufacturing jobs over to China. Right? At every step, the GOP resisted Donald Trump in all of his campaign promises. Donald Trump had to sign an executive order to build the wall because the GOP couldn't be bothered to include it in any of the spending bills over the last 4 years. And there's been more than 4 because they've had those supplemental bills Remember where they say, okay, we can't come to a term. We're going to fund the government for another month, fund the government for another month, fund the government for another month. I bet you when you count it all up over 4 years, close to 10 spending opportunities, appropriations packages, where the GOP could have put border wall funding in, but didn't. Go down the line. How about the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act? The idea that when a baby is developing in the womb and reaches the point in gestation where the baby can feel pain, recognizable by babies wincing when they're poked with medical instruments, that the point at which a baby can feel pain in the womb, it is unconscionable to kill that baby after that point in development. It is unconscionable to perform a dismemberment abortion on a human being capable of feeling pain. Now, I'm not saying that any abortion should be legal, but that legislation honed in on that point. I think it was 20 weeks, 21 weeks gestation. At the point at which a baby can feel pain, you cannot dismember the baby in the womb and then pull out the body parts to perform an abortion. It's just unconscionable. Can't do it. Heard for how many years? GOP said, I promise we're going to put that through. Trump's in office. They held an up or down vote, but they're not actually pushing for it. All these issues. Sherry's saying in the comment section that per Fox News, Trump will be discharged from the hospital tonight at 6:30. That's excellent news. Let's go ahead and, Mr. Producer, one more time, let's play the footage of how we predict Donald Trump will look coming out of the hospital.
Had to close it.
Oh, he had to close it. Can you pull it up while I'm waiting? Pull it up and just put it up there as soon as you can get it. Yeah, it's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. How Republicans are just, they say exactly what they need to say to get you to support them, to get you to send send them checks. But when it actually comes time to make good on those promises, go down the list and ask yourself, have they ever delivered? Like, of the legislative accomplishments of the Trump administration, how many can you point to? I can point to tax reform, but that wasn't driven by the grassroots. That wasn't driven by the Tea Party. That was driven by establishment interests. That was driven by corporate donors. They wanted the tax code rewritten. Yeah, sure, we all have a benefit. The leftist talking point that it only helps the rich isn't true. It helps everyone. Max. Oh, we have the footage. So now that we know that Donald Trump is scheduled to be discharged from the hospital this evening, let's go ahead and play that footage of what it's going to look like. It's just too funny. Hey! I would cut it there. That's what it's going to look like tonight. That or Trump should dance his way to Marine One. That's what I think. But yeah, no, go down the list. And people saying that the other Cherry says that makes me physical ill about the babies. It does. It should. It should make you want to vomit. And I'm not saying that before 20 weeks gestation it should be legal. None of it should be legal. But one thing that Democrats are great at is chipping away. Right? Democrats understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And they are willing to chip away at something piece by piece by piece to get what they want. Look at gun control. They're willing to go after this gun, then bump fire stocks, right? Then magazines, then semi-automatic weapons. They're willing to go after piece by piece by piece by piece. And by the time you look and see what's going on, they've taken the whole damn thing, right? They're always demanding compromise. Does anyone want to compromise anymore? I don't. Does anyone actually think that they deserve any more room to compromise? I don't. It's just insane. They keep demanding, we have to compromise. When have they actually fought to give us what we've been promised? And this is the thing that gets me. And this is why Democrats are always willing to just chip away. If you meet someone halfway, just 5 times consecutively, meet me halfway, okay. Meet me halfway again, okay. Meet me halfway again, okay. Do that 5 times. The other side gets 96%, 97% of what they want. Do the math. Multiply 0.5 by itself 5 times. right? Multiply it. Half times a half times a half times a half times a half. It gets you 0.03125, just shy of 97% the other side gets if you meet them halfway 5 times. Democrats have been playing this game for years. They've been playing the game for years. Republicans aren't willing to do it. They're not willing to actually take any of these incremental steps to make sure that we secure the Second Amendment, make sure we secure religious liberty. They do an all or nothing approach. So while the Democrats are a ground and pound football offense, running the ball every play and getting 3 downs every play, running 4 on 4th, right? If you're playing football and you're able to get 3.5 yards a carry, you get a first down every drive, as long as you do that consistently. So that's what they're doing. They're running the ball, moving it down the field. Republicans, they take 3 Hail Mary passes to the end zone, say, oh, it didn't work out, and then they give up the ball, punt it away. That's how the Republicans play. So, oh yeah, we're going to throw up a bill to get rid of abortion forever. Oh, we didn't get it. Oh, well, we tried. We got to give the ball over now. Like, oh, we're going to throw to make all gun rights protected forever. Oh, intercepted. Oh, well. Right? They're not willing to do the incrementalist approach. Whereas Democrats are more than willing to fight in terms of decades. That's why they're so terrified of Amy Coney Barrett being added to the Supreme Court, because they've been fighting this in the judiciary for decades. They've been fighting to make it an activist judiciary for decades. Right? That's why these Supreme Court hearings are so contentious, because by confirming someone to the bench, the legislature actually acknowledges now that they're ceding some of their legislative authority. If it was just to call balls and strikes, this would be just a formality. But they know that people put on the bench now because of how the whole process has been changed. Both sides understand that the person going to the bench is going to legislate from the bench, do the legislature's job. That's why it's so contentious. But no, Democrats are terrified because they've been fighting this fight for decades. And now Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and now you're going to add another conservative to Supreme Court. But oh no, Democrats want that to be canceled too. Chuck Schumer's demanding that be canceled too. It's an amazing example of hypocrisy. Earlier this year, Democrats insisted on being able to conduct the business of the House of Representatives remotely. So they changed the rules to allow all hearings to be done remotely, all committee votes to be done remotely. And they also set up what's called proxy voting, which is the idea that if one person shows up, I think they can vote on behalf of 10 other people. Right? So they didn't actually need to have everyone show up. All they had to say is, yeah, I represent this district. I'm voting on behalf of these 10 people. And that person would count for, 11 votes? So they didn't actually have to have people show up. The problem with that was that the Constitution requires a quorum. It requires actual in-person voting. So if you don't have enough bodies in the building, you can't technically vote on legislation. Right? They ignored the Constitution. I still contend that anything that they voted on using this process was unconstitutional. But they just did that. In the Senate, there actually isn't anything in the Constitution that says that a Supreme Court nominee has to be voted on in person. It doesn't. It just says the Senate has to give advice and consent. It's the Senate rules that require it. So the GOP should just do what the Democrats did and say we're going to have remote hearings, we're going to have a remote vote, proxy vote, and we're going to push this through. But now the same Democrats who said in the name of safety, you must have proxy voting, you must have remote voting, the same Democrats that said that just a couple months ago are now saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't have a proxy vote on a Supreme Court nominee. No, you can't have a remote hearing. We need to be able to look in their eyes. We need to be able to see them. We need to be able to see them right across the table. No, you can't have that. So it was okay when the House did it. It was actually progressive. But when the GOP wants to do the same thing, say, no, can't do that. No, can't do that. That's Schumer's argument. They're trying to now cancel Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation. And listen, it was just like last week that they wanted it canceled for another reason. They said, before Trump had even nominated anyone, they said whoever he nominates cannot be added to the bench. He nominates Barrett, 2 people on the judiciary test positive for the virus, and now Schumer's argument is, we need more time. Dianne Feinstein says, this feels rushed. So you're not going to vote no matter what. You've already said, before she was even nominated, you said you would not vote for anyone that Donald Trump nominated. Don't sit here and tell me that it needs to be delayed because it's being too rushed. You're never going to vote for this person. And the Republicans should call them out. But no, in the Senate, there's no in-person voting, I believe now until October 19th. So there's no in-person Senate business until October 19th. They've already caved. Graham says he's going to hold the hearing, but they still are going to require an in-person vote. They'll hold the hearing remotely, but they're still going to require an in-person vote. So the hearing she's not going to get an up or down vote on October 12th the way she was supposed to, which means she's probably not going to be confirmed in time for the election. She's not going to hear an election challenge, and the Supreme Court will either be 4-4 deadlocked or have a very slim, I think it'll be deadlocked. I don't consider John Roberts to be a reliable conservative. It's just, they can't help themselves. And this is what I mean. The spineless GOPers blew it again. We started this talking about Andrew McCabe, and it's true. They should have subpoenaed Andrew McCabe from the very start. They should have subpoenaed all of these traitors from the very start, but they didn't. Right? They should have changed the rules as soon as as soon as Tillis and Lee tested positive. They should have changed the rules. Said, okay, in light of this, we're going to follow the Democrats in the House, their precedent, and we're going to have all the hearings remotely, and we're going to allow for proxy voting in the Senate for confirmations. Not for legislation, for confirmations. They could have done it. And it'd be constitutional, it'd be legal, but they're too afraid. They're too cowardly. What else is the excuse? What else is the excuse? Sherry wrote in, Max, don't you know that COVID is transmitted by Zoom? I guess it is, because that was Andrew McCabe's other excuse. Go ahead, everyone, and make sure that if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and on Facebook, make sure you like the video, make sure you comment, make sure you share. I want to make sure that we reach more people today. I don't get it anymore. I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of seeing the GOP saying just the bare minimum of what they need to say to win re-election. Like Lindsey Graham, whatever you think of him, he would not be fighting this hard if he was not on the ballot in November. Right? You can follow all these people, whoever you're talking about. There's a direct correlation between how hard they fight for conservatism and how close they are to their next re-election campaign. And Lindsey Graham is going up against someone who has more money than him. Tens of millions of dollars. Leftists are pouring money into the race, trying to get Lindsey Graham out. I mean, this is the amazing thing. Like, on this, we agree. Conservatives and leftists both agree that Lindsey Graham should not be the person representing South Carolina. I want the seat to be Republican, so he's going to have to win in November. But if this was primary time, leftists and conservatives would be donating to his challenger. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just it's so infuriating. It's so absolutely infuriating because I don't want to make you feel helpless because, listen, we run campaigns like this. We run campaigns pressuring Congress to do the right thing, and they work, right? James Comey testified because we've pressured Congress to force it. Now, he wasn't subpoenaed, but he testified, but they just won't issue the subpoenas. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And it's depressing because I think Donald Trump will win in November. I think he will win. If you go back, I mean, the poll out today, Joe Biden holds a 14-point lead over Donald Trump. You can go back to October of 2016 and find the exact same poll numbers. I'm not saying that means it's going to go the exact same way, but everyone's saying that, oh, Trump has lost. There was another poll that had Trump ahead, right? I think that Trump can win. I think he probably will win. But what's obvious is that conservatives aren't going to win. They'll win in Trump being reelected. But conservatives won't win by Lindsey Graham being elected. Like, conservatives won't win by the establishment GOP holding on to power, by corporate donors having their interests protected. We'll win. Here's a perfect example. And this is actually one of the few things I'm critical of Trump for. Trump ran on a Second Amendment promise. He had promise after promise after promise of what he was going to do for gun owners. He hasn't done any of it. The only thing he's done two things. He's overturned, with the help from Republicans, one of the few things they did, overturned Obama-era regulation that basically said if you're on Social Security and you check the box off for a representative payee to have someone else manage your finances for you, that's admission that you're mentally defective and you can never again own a gun. That was an Obama administration regulation. Simply by checking that box so someone else could access your benefits and pick up your groceries and pick up your prescriptions, that basically gave up your Second Amendment rights. Trump got rid of that. It's great. But if you actually listen during his rallies, the only other thing he talks about is that your Second Amendment is under siege and I stopped the Democrats from taking it away, which is true. Absolutely true. A President Hillary Clinton, we'd be in a much worse position for the Second Amendment. But there was a 2-year period where we had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president, and we did not take one step towards expanding our Second Amendment rights. Not one step. Everything got left on the cutting room floor, right? There was no concealed carry reciprocity, right? There's none of that. So that's what I mean. They make the promises, and then they end up doing the bare minimum necessary to be able to say, yeah, I was good. I'm out. And yes, Trump has to win, and I will crawl over broken glass to make sure Trump wins. I think I'm actually good to go, but I'm going to check. I registered to vote in Texas, and my voter registration is pending right now. And today's the last day to register. So for whatever reason they deny it, I'm out of luck. So I have to figure that out once the podcast is over. But I'll crawl over broken glass to make sure that I get to the polls to vote for Trump. I would crawl over broken glass to help him win re-election. Absolutely. Absolutely. But am I happy with the Republican Party? No. Am I happy with Lindsey Graham? No. Right? Am I happy with Mitch McConnell? I actually am happy with Mitch McConnell. Last week, Chuck Schumer demanded that the Senate stay in session. This is what Cocaine Mitch. I like Cocaine Mitch. There's two types of Mitch McConnell. There's Mitch McConnell when he's bowing down to the establishments, and then there's Cocaine Mitch. If you don't know Cocaine Mitch, it's a story from the primary. His competitor in West Virginia, I forget, Blankenship, I think his name was. He accused the McConnell family of trafficking large amounts of cocaine aboard some ships into the country. No idea. But out of the blue, this guy just calls him Cocaine Mitch in a campaign ad. It doesn't even add a footnote. It doesn't even add a citation. He's Cocaine Mitch. And that was the reason. There's establishment Mitch McConnell, and then there's Cocaine Mitch, what I call him, which is when he's actually doing good for the conservative cause. So last week, Chuck Schumer said, no, you are not able to go out of session. You have to stay in session until you get coronavirus relief for the American people. Mitch McConnell said, okay, I am filing cloture on 5 judges, which sets up a floor vote for 5 new judges. I like that. I like that, Mitch. But I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that those seats should have been filled years ago. Even with record amounts of judge seats being filled, if Donald Trump does not win re-election, he will actually leave office with more vacancies than any other president ever. Democrats kept them open. Key federal positions kept open. I mean, Democrats love to talk about how Trump should be using FEMA to help get funds to schools, to help schools reopen safely. But they don't mention the fact that there are still people waiting to be confirmed to hold positions in FEMA that Democrats refuse to give an up or down vote. That are instead of being actually instead of actually putting presidential nominees in those positions, people that the president trusts, the president is comfortable working with, they're keeping them in the hands of career government officials. So Democrats love to say, oh, well, we should be doing this. But in reality, they're blocking the nominees from being confirmed. They never mention that, right? It's infuriating. Donald Trump, if he doesn't win re-election, he will leave office with more federal vacancies, not talking about the judge, executive vacancies, than any other president, simply because Democrats refuse to let him actually have an administration, and Republicans refuse to fight for it. So I like Mitch, but I think that he could have done better. I think they all could have been done better. I don't think anyone can say that Republicans have done a good job. And that's what pisses me off. So yeah, I'm going to vote Republican full ticket. Yeah, I am going to support the president. Obviously, we completely supportive of the president. But we all need to do a real deep, we have to really look inwards and ask ourselves, are we comfortable with the Republican Party the way it is now? Is this okay? Is this how we want the Republican Party to be run? right? Look, it was just a couple years ago that Michael Steele was running the Republican Party. Now he is actively campaigning to remove Donald Trump from office. That's the kind of Republicans that are left in the party still. This old guard, corporate interest Republican Party. There has to be a purge. Whether Donald Trump wins or not, there has to be a purge. And I'm not talking about a violent one. I'm not talking about that. But as Lewis mentions in the comments section, there's probably one coming. Actually, I've been thinking about this. Instead of talking about the upcoming civil war, I'm just going to say that there's going to be a fiery but peaceful civil war. How's that work? Borrow a little bit of CNN's language. The civil war will be fiery but mostly peaceful. I think that's how we should talk about what's coming and what we all know is coming sooner or later. But yeah, no, so we've kind of been all over the place with this episode. Joe Otto wasn't in, which is fine. I just didn't know that, so I had to kind of put this together last minute. But I think that we have this general theme of the fact that Republicans are really only doing the bare minimum necessary to get by, necessary to win re-election. They become the most conservative right before they are on the ballot, and if they win, they go back to their old ways. Now we have Andrew McCabe now saying he won't testify tomorrow, even remotely, because of COVID-19, and that's just okay. It's not okay. We have Democrats saying you must allow remote proxy voting in the House, but it would be unconscionable to do it in the Senate, and that's just okay. And the Republicans are too cowardly to put up the fight. It's really, really shameful. Really, really shameful. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. If you like the podcast, again, make sure that you subscribe to us. If you have an iPhone, you have a Mac, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. There's a link in the description. If you do that, we just hit the number 119th biggest political podcast in the United States. So very, very important that if you have a MacBook or you have an iPhone, go into the link in the description and do leave us a review, 5-star review if you like the show. Let people know what you like about it. Leave us that review. It helps us go up the rankings a little bit. And also, if you watch the podcast live on YouTube or Facebook, make sure you also subscribe to the audio version. Very important. If you can't show up, that way you can listen as you go about your day. Again, you can do it on Apple Podcasts. You can do it on Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, or Podbean. However you like it, we're there. Whatever podcast website you use, we're there. So make sure you check that out. It really helps us as we grow up the rankings. We're also on Parler. Follow us at Conservative Daily, all one word. Be happy to follow you back. Right before we went on, I just went and followed back 49 people on Parler who had followed us over the weekend. So if you do follow us, I will be happy to follow you back. Also, there's a link for you to join our email newsletter. Very important. If and when big tech comes down on us, that's how we're going to keep the show going, because we're not going to end the show if Facebook bans us or YouTube bans us. We're going to keep going. That's how you'll get up-to-date updates on what we're going to do. So make sure you do that. Also, we have a link for merch if you want to help support the channel. And then again, 2 links to like and follow our Facebook page and then subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. I think I did everything. So that's going to be it for this edition of the show. My name is Max McGuire. Remember that the fight to take back our country clearly isn't over, but the only way we win is if we all stand and fight together.